Australia before?
No, I never did compete in Australia before. We'll get to that. We'll tell you how we kind of came.
Que merda é essa,
Chris has an
porra?
interesting story just trying to get here. He was telling me backstage.
Chris também achou um seminário aqui, irmão.
2 missed flights, or what happened?
A few days. Start off with my visa, because we usually get to do the visa at the counter, but then they said we have to go online, which was kind of challenging for me. Only had a couple of years in college, so it was that was not going to happen in time. But then I got on the plane the next day after taking a trip to Gold's Gym, so I said, okay, I'll go. The next day is all fine, get on the plane, and we had an emergency landing in Honolulu. So 5 hours up in the air, they start dumping gas and going to land. And I'm thinking we're gonna just jump right back up in the air and be on our way. And they said, you all have to get off the plane and you have to, someone passed out. So you have to get off the plane and we're gonna take a trip tomorrow at 3 p.m. It was now 3 a.m. in the morning, Hawaiian time, so we're just scrambling to get off and spending like 5 hours in line trying to get a voucher for a hotel. Came back the next day and found ourselves in the same position on the plane a little late, and then we ended up staying 5 hours sitting on the plane, followed by another 3 hours standing in line to get another voucher for another hotel to come the next day. We had to change airlines, then had to fly to Sydney, from Sydney to Melbourne. Just got here late last night.
Yeah, interesting story. What Chris Cormier will do for you guys just to come.
I'm still coming.
To Australia. He's
coming
no matter what. Chris won a few times out here. I fancy myself kind of as a bodybuilding historian, not to brag, but I love the sport of bodybuilding. I started when I was 17 years old, and I know all the guys that came before me, and of course I'm enjoying my retirement, 15 years following all the guys coming up behind me. And I'm just as actively involved now as I ever was as a competitor, doing kind of all of the facets of bodybuilding, sponsoring athletes, being sponsored by companies, working for Muscular Development Magazine, and promoting bodybuilding shows and muscle camps, and of course emceeing shows for Arnold, and he's in 6 different countries now, and staying in touch with the younger guys coming up and the older guys that have retired.
So if you want a sponsorship, contact Sean Ray.
Well, a lot of people, when they get involved in bodybuilding, like Chris and I, we didn't get involved for sponsorships. We didn't get involved in bodybuilding to make money. I don't think we even realized at the time what we were doing would take us to places like this. My first time here was when I was 20 years old, but what we don't see in bodybuilding, we talk about this now in reflection, is a lot of guys don't start out as teenagers. We started out as teenagers. And the guys before us, Lee Haney was a teenage national champion. Jay Cutler was a teenage national champion. We got a lot of guys that, Branch Warren, a teenage national champion. Chris, teenage USA winner, I'm a teenage national champion. Huh?
California national
champion. Yeah, okay. You got 2 titles as a teenager. But we don't see that now. We see guys turning pro at 30, 34 years old, 35 years old, and they're competing. Tony Freeman's 49 years old, and a lot of guys are getting up in their 40s, and they're still, like 40 is the new 30. But we got started very young. Arnold was already a sensation at 19 years old, and we just don't see that as much anymore. You don't see a lot of shows that have a huge teenage category. Back when we came up, our teenage division was huge.
Yeah, Sean was a leading teenager from the teen scene that they had in Flex magazine. I was like, I couldn't wait to get that magazine because, I've seen Sean actually in high school, just sitting on the bench there, cheering me on as I walk in to his high school to go to wrestle. Yeah. But so we knew each other from, way before, we became into professionals. But, like I said, I had to get my flat top like Sean. I was like, I'm gonna do the Sean Ray thing.
Well, the good thing about how we kind of came up, and our careers kind of parallel each other. Chris came behind me. He's not that much younger than I was. But we are constantly a work in progress, following in the footsteps of other people. Lee Haney was the first national champion in 1982 for the NPC. I became a national champion 5 years later in 1987, 3 years out of high school. I think what made me unique as a bodybuilder coming up is that things for me happened very fast. 1 year into bodybuilding, I was teenage Mr. California, and 2 years later, I was teenage national champion. At 20, I was here in Sydney, Australia, winning the Junior World Championships. And 21, I was winning the national championships as a pro bodybuilder. Chris came up right behind me and did pretty much the same thing and got to the pros by winning the USA championships in 1993, right after Flex Wheeler had won it in 1992. So we came up at a very good era. Literally everybody that was coming up in the 90s were like in the Hall of Fame, bodybuilding, competing against, I'm one of the guys that in my era got a chance to compete against Lee Haney, Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Hayes, and Jay Cutler, and of course Dexter Jackson before I retired. So my roots are a little bit different than Chris. You turned pro in 1993, so there's a lot of guys you didn't have a chance to compete against, like Mike Christian and some of the guys, but historically speaking, the lifespan of the bodybuilders during that time was probably about 10 years.
Yeah, my rookie year, I actually stood next to Bertle Fox.
Brutal.
Yeah, so that was pretty, he wouldn't give me any space, so I was like, okay, you go ahead, you go up there. So they called me on the first call out, so I was like, excuse me, Bertle.
Bertle's he's an English bodybuilder from St. Kitts. He's serving a double life sentence for killing his girlfriend and her mother. The things you remember from bodybuilding, I went to St. Kitts to open his gym in 1997, I believe it was. He was dating a younger girl, and he had already had a history of domestic violence. And, they were broken up and they moved on. He went to England, came home from England, found out she had a boyfriend, and shot the 22-year-old ex-girlfriend, and shot her mother. And at that time, in St. Kitts, they wanted to try to hang the guy. The government's ruled by, I think, either the French or the English. But he wound up with a double life sentence. He sits in jail today. And he was one of those guys that we looked up to in 1983. He was 5th in the Mr. Olympia. But let's get to where we came from. So you started bodybuilding. I'm going to interview you for a real quick second. Tell them how you became a professional bodybuilder and what that was all about.
I just started out coming from Palm Springs, California, making my way to Venice every chance I got. Each month I would go to Venice and get some encouragement by looking at the guys. It was, Mike Christian, Charles Glass, and a few different people would walk around from machine to machine, and I'm just watching the body language and what's going on, like who's lifting what or whatever. Back then it was a lot of strong guys. In Gold's Gym, it was like maybe you see 15 professionals in one place at one time on any given day in Gold's. So I got a lot of encouragement being that close to Gold's in Venice. I wanted to see how many people I could beat and how many, teenagers at first, how many teenagers was around that I could connect with, compete with, or beat on the stage. So that was my goal, is just to, before I turned 20, I wanted to be one of the best in the world. With Sean Ray, competing the teen world, junior world, they call it. I actually, there was no internet back then, so I didn't know where the hell he competed at. I just knew it was somewhere far, and I wanted to try to do that. So, coming up through California, I just compete up and down California in every competition I could find, from Inglewood to all the way to Northern California, Southern California, making my way to doing the USA in 1991 with Mike Matarazzo won. Me and Mike and Flex Wheeler, we all trained in the same gym at the same time for that show. I ended up taking 4th. I was 23 years old at the time, and that was, I pressured myself, like, if I don't make the top 5, even though I was very young, I was like, maybe it's not the sport for me. I need to go back to college and keep my wrestling going or something like that. But I ended up taking 4th, and I was like, okay, I can still do this. And